What'd you make of all the reaction for pregame fit for Thursday?
I didn't see it, fortunately. I'm trying to stay away from all that stuff, so I hope people liked it.
I think you talked about what you wear, kind of what you like or whatever. What kind of goes into kind of maybe how you built your sense of what you like and don't like over the years? What do you think?
I have no idea. I just see something that I like. I don't know. That's all I got.
What's the biggest difference with the Ravens defense now with Martindale not there? Are they running a different scheme? What are you seeing on film about their defense in particular?
They're a little less aggressive than they were with him, but they're still the old Baltimore. They're gonna get up and challenge you. They're gonna pressure. They're gonna try to keep you on your heels. So, I think we have a good plan for them, but we know it's gonna be a challenge. They have the best corner duo that we've played so far. They're gonna be a challenge for our guys and for me. So I think it's an exciting challenge for us to go out and prove ourselves on prime time.
How would you characterize their corner duo, Joe?
Like I said, best we've played so far, possibly the best in the league. Those guys have proven themselves over and over and over again. So it's going to be a tough challenge for us.
Are they as aggressive as ever? Will they?
Those guys have all the confidence in the world in their abilities, so they're going to come up and challenge the receivers, challenge me to make good throws in tight coverage. So we'll see what happens.
Did you see any of the reaction to your foundation announcement or anything like that?
I did not.
What was that like because I'm sure there was a lot of behind-the-scenes work.
There's been a lot going on with that for the off-season that, we're excited to start. I think it's going to help a lot of people in underserved and underprivileged communities to, provide some opportunities and some resources for those kind of people to help them have a better life. And, we're going to focus on mental health and food insecurity, but we're going to be pretty broad in trying to just help people get what they need: food, mental health services, hopefully provide some scholarships in the coming future. So I think that'll be good.
Do you like doing quarterback sneaks?
Yeah, easy first down most of the time.
Why do you think that that's not more of something that you guys do in these 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 situations on the goal line?
We call it a lot. Just depends on the look that the defense gives us, whether we end up running it or not.
A lot of quarterbacks have said it looks a lot easier than it actually is to execute.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? Why?
Yeah, those guys are pretty big in there.
How often do y'all, I guess, so you go up, basically read the front, and then you have a check out of that, you're correct, if you guys...
Something like that.
Yeah.
How big a factor is Marcus Williams?
You want the whole play call?
I'll take it.
How big a factor has Marcus Williams been on the back end for them?
Their whole secondary has been playing really well for him. He's a rangy safety that, you have to be aware of where he's at when you're throwing the ball down the field, because he can get involved in some plays that a lot of safeties can't.
At this point, do you just expect Jamar to be doubled all the time?
Yeah, most of the time. And so when you do get your one-on-one opportunities, you have to take them, because you're not going to get a lot throughout the season or the game. You might get 1 or 2. So when you do, you got to hit them.
How have you felt in the pocket through 4 games? As the offensive line is now, it looks like they're getting a little bit more chemistry. How have you felt back there as you're kind of going through reads?
Yeah, it's getting better and better and better. The last game was pretty close to perfect, in my opinion. And when you have that kind of time, we're going to be able to find receivers, and I'm going to keep getting better. Receivers going to keep getting better. O-line's going to keep getting better, and so we're just going to keep building on this thing.
That game in Baltimore last year, I'm sure you guys were confident training camp going into the year, but was there an affirmation that came with that game? Was that when you guys kind of really realized that last year's team could be special?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. We had a good season up to that point, but when we went into Baltimore and beat them the way we did, it kind of proved to ourselves that we were who we thought we were, and we just built from that point on and looking to have that same thing happen this season.
So, going back to your foundation, I know when you gave your Heisman speech 3 years ago, you mentioned Athens, Ohio, and the food insecurity. Was that sort of the turning point where you really started to think about, acting on that and launching the foundation, or how long has that kind of been in the works for you?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to start it eventually. Just, this year happened to be the right time. We were coming off a big season that, if you started at that time, you can get a lot of funding, just because of how high profile we were at the time. That could help a lot of people, and so it was the perfect time to do it. I knew I wanted to do it eventually, and so we worked all off season to make it happen.
Growing up in Athens, seeing that firsthand, were there specific moments where it really impacted you, where you wanted to do this, later on in the future?
It's tough to say when you're growing up, because, I mean, you don't know anything when you're growing up. You're just there and you notice things, but you don't really understand. And then when you look back on some experiences that happened that maybe you kind of brushed off when you were little, you kind of realized that those people just didn't have a lot, and so they were doing what they could to get by. And so that, that was a realization that I had really towards the end of my college career.
How much pride do you take, Joe, in taking command in the huddle? Joe Mixon was saying on Monday that there's a certain look you have when the game's on the line or a big play needs to be made, that you are in complete control.
Yeah, I mean, the huddle is, the center sets the huddle, but, I'm calling the play, and so as a quarterback, you have to have a presence. You have to take control of that huddle so everyone is locked in, listening to the play, and you have to have a loud voice because sometimes you're playing on the road, and they're not going to be able to hear. There's going to be 80,000 fans screaming, and so you have to take control of that and make it yours in order to have success, I think.
Did you reach out to Tua at all?
I did. Yeah.
Have a conversation with him. What was kind of your reaction to, looking back on that, any other thoughts on kind of how that transpired?
Yeah, I mean, it was, like I said, it's a scary moment. We know what this game can do. It's what we signed up for. But whenever something like that happens, it obviously makes you take a step back and think, and I'm glad he's okay. I don't know, haven't talked to him about when he'll be back, but all the signs point to him being healthy going forward, and there shouldn't be any long-lasting effects. So I'm happy for that.
Joe, with the foundation, what prompted the mental health aspect for you? Why was that important?
Well, during the pandemic, I think mental health was a big thing that everybody was talking about because there's a lot of social isolation, not a lot of social activities going on, and one, that's very hard for people that are developing, people middle school, elementary school, high school. You hear a lot of stories of young kids who were, starting to learn how to talk, but they didn't have anybody to talk to really. They didn't have those social environments to grow that speech pattern. And so, who knows what are going to be the effects of that going forward. And, that's something that I think is a big deal in society, especially with all the social media going on and all the divisiveness in the country. Mental health is going to play a big part in everybody's lives going forward.
How much of an impact was your mom in that regard, given her background?
She spearheaded the whole thing. I wouldn't have done it at the time that I did if I didn't have, mom and dad that are very passionate about what we're doing and, are excited to help a lot of people in our community in Cincinnati, in Athens, and Louisiana, and all over the country. And so she's going to be a big part of this thing for as long as she wants to be a part of it.
So what was the pandemic like for you?
I loved it. I'm not I was back at home, and all my friends were in town. That nobody was in town for very long, but during that time, just about everybody that I went to high school with was in town at that time because everyone had just graduated college. They were still living with their parents, so I was able to see a lot of people that I hadn't seen in a long time. And I'm not exactly a big social being, so I'm not going out to dinner all the time anyway. So I enjoyed it.
You talked to Colin Cowherd. You told him that you've had some concussion-like effects in games, and definitely remember maybe some of the second halves of games. Does that happen in the NFL? Do you know when? Do you remember what games that's happened where you just haven't? That's kind of you had those kind of.
Yeah, it's definitely happened.
In the league.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's happened. Stuff like that happens all the time. It's I think I haven't experienced I've never had a headache the next day from a concussion, but like I said, I've had games, high school, college, NFL, that maybe I don't remember the rest of the game, but I don't have any side effects other than that. So I don't know if you would call that a concussion or not, but definitely some kind of head injury for sure.
Now that with all the conversation about what happened with Tua and kind of the revamp discussions about it, does that maybe affect? Maybe do you think there's going to be more of an emphasis on players to maybe take another look at it? I know it's been a decade since it was really in the spotlight, but do you feel like maybe players are now going to look at some of these things maybe a little bit deeper than they had prior to what happened to Tua? Yeah,
I think it'll be very individualized depending on the person. For me, if I can go back out there and play, I'm going to go back out there and play. If I can do anything I can to help the team, that's what I'm going to do. Obviously, if I feel like I have a concussion, I'm not going to go back out there. But, this is a violent game that, I think we signed up for. We signed up for the knee injuries and the arm injuries and the whole thing. We get paid handsomely for it. You got to take the head injuries very seriously. If somebody goes down, you have to take a look at them. But, I've never experienced a concussion like that where I'm just knocked out. If I do, I'm definitely going to take it very cautiously and if I present symptoms, I'm going to go and tell the training staff, and I'm going to get myself out of there.
So many players are programmed, almost every NFL player is programmed, be ready, go back in the game no matter what. Do you think at some point the league has to do, and the Players Association has to do more to step in for the player when the player wants to play anyway?
I don't think there's a lot you can do when a player if he's withholding symptoms or he wants to go back out there and he's not telling you, I have a headache, I'm a little dizzy. There's not a lot you can do if he's withholding symptoms unless you want to go down the road of taking a healthy player out when maybe he actually doesn't have a concussion, but the play looked like he did. So I think it's a tough spot. I think the league does a good job for the most part, if there's a tough hit, they get the guy out of there and they go evaluate him. If he's good, they send him back in. If he's not, they take him out. It's a tough job. I'm glad I don't have that job, for sure.
Is it scary when you have had those moments the next day that you couldn't recall?
Maybe the first time, but I wouldn't call it scary, no. That's unfortunately part of the game we play.
When you say you have those moments, or if you're able to elaborate on that at all, is it like when you're watching film, you at first don't know what you're watching, or is it more just like a fuzzy recollection of the game itself?
Yeah, it's more of a fuzzy recollection. You don't remember the individual plays, but you remember what happened in the game.
In May in the podcast, you had talked about the Ravens are kind of mouthy and that I don't initiate it, but I'm more than willing to respond to it. Talked about the huge numbers that you and Jamar put up against them. What do you expect their level to be, and how will you respond?
We know what kind of team they are. They're a really good team. It's going to be a tough divisional rival game, and that's part of football. Talking smack, going out there. I mean, that's what I love about the game. And I got a lot of friends on that team that I went to college with, played with. It's all love at the end of the day, but it'll definitely be intense.
Aside from that secondary, what's the key to maybe being successful against that defense, or anything that particularly that you have to do well against Baltimore that maybe other teams don't require?
Yeah, you got to protect the ball, and there's the main thing. I know I say that every game, but I think they lead the league in turnovers right now with 10. And so if we can limit those turnovers, I think we'll be able to move the ball up and down the field. They do a great job of getting pressure, getting tips at the line of scrimmage, and capitalizing on those opportunities. So we're going to have to protect the ball, run the ball well, and can't get behind like we did in the first 2 games.
I know he obviously doesn't defend you, but a lot of people are looking at Lamar Jackson's contract situation and watching it closely for you. And I know you're obviously not worried about that right now, but are you a fan of Lamar Jackson's game, and have you been paying attention to all of what's going on with that contract situation?
I have not paid attention to the contract, but I love watching him play. I mean, it feels like every couple minutes he just makes a play where he makes your jaw drop. And, I mean, you look at the defense, like, what are we supposed to do with that guy? And I think he's really improved throwing the football down the field. And, I mean, he's one of the premier players in our league that I love watching because I can't do everything that he can do. And so when you have a guy like that I think it's good for the league. You have people like me that kind of win in a certain way, and then you have guys like him and Mahomes and Josh that win in a different way. It's just a great time for the league to have players like that and quarterbacks that have so much varying skill sets that every game you're watching looks a little different. And I think that's great for the league.
How do they turn
those, please?
How do they turn over? They got 10. Do they turn it over with pressure? Do they turn it over with secondary? How
A little bit of everything. Their secondary does a great job of capitalizing on the ones that you throw them. They're going to catch it. Defensive line does a great job of getting their hands up if they don't win immediately on the rush. They're going to sit back and try to tip the ball to create turnovers. That's a big part of it. So you got to get the ball out quickly, but always be aware that 6'9" Calais Campbell is going to be there with his big mitts in the passing lane sometimes, and you got to be aware of that.
You touch all the quarterbacks and their varying styles of play, but what's the common denominator? I mean, everyone you mentioned, wins football games. So what's the common denominator that they have that, is the telling factor?
They make plays when it counts down the stretch. In this league, everybody's so good that most games are going to be tight going into the fourth quarter. It matters what you do down the stretch. Those guys are all clutch players that make unbelievable throws and unbelievable plays at the end of games to help their team win.
There's a lot of talk last week about what it's like to play in a home environment like you all ended up getting, prime time at home, the white jerseys and all that. What is it like, the inverse, playing in that type of environment on the road in prime time?
Yeah, you got to be great with your communication. Got to be loud in the huddle. Got to be great with your signals. Because if you let the crowd dictate what you can and can't do at the line of scrimmage, then it's going to be a long day for you. So we got to be good with our signals and communication at the line.
Patrick Queen, did he talk more trash in practice at LSU or in the games for the Ravens?
More trash in practice for sure.
What was that like practicing against him then and then seeing him on the other side?
I love Patrick. He was my locker buddy at Ohio State or at LSU, so we talked all the time. Got in a couple scuffles, and that kind of bonded us a little more. So I love Patrick. Love talking to him after every game that we play against him.
Got you a couple scuffles. How did that happen?
Maybe I'll leave that one out.